whatever, you can probably brush it off. But I do expect to see those 4 names at the bottom to really at least turn things around immediately. Because as I did mention earlier, you don't have that many games, you don't have that much of breathing space to work with, and if it kind of continues this way and your day one's not that good, it's going to require quite a...
You're saying this is just typical Na'Vi coming to the first day of the tournament.
Right. I still have a lot of faith in Na'Vi because performing how I'd expect they would. They're an 5 points, and there is no in between with this team, and that's absolutely fine. That's how they're going to catch up. Hopefully they don't continue to crash and burn, but it's only game 1, like, big deal, it's not a big deal, but especially with having such like a confident start from some of these teams, specifically Valdez, international teams.
Well, let's take a closer look at the team that Raymond Reddington is probably across the board, because this is definitely a team we didn't have on our Philippines put themselves up there. You can see Tyra coming out with the 880 damage and the 4 kills. Everyone, I mean, already playing pretty well. Yeah, you see a couple of numbers like 200, maybe they dominate an entire lobby.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look at, it's not just about the individuals or tempered approach. They weren't like getting a little overzealous. They weren't really panicking. And if you look at it, like we did see Aeon's we're in a 3v4 scenario, because I believe even like Bigatron and some of the other teams, even Zeus for that matter, had like 3 or 4 players still alive at the very end of the game. And the fact that they were able to hold their own, especially for a team which we really didn't pick to be performing that great here. Especially when I feel like, at least for me, I feel like PMWI here is going to be very, very frag heavy. It's going to be teams just going out, looking for the skills. I mean, they are the epitome of just going in for the hunt. And the fact that a team like Blacklist is able to kind of
hold their own against quite a season again. Speaking of that, we're going to take a closer look at 2 teams. And it's going to be BTR. These 2 teams putting out the... Well, we're seeing these 2 teams really live to that occasion, really force that to happen.
I mean, here, Jason, you got Bigatron Red Aliens over to 23 points for Valdez. Valdez putting up 1,822 damage and 741 healing. So these guys really had to go through the Warzone to get to where they placed here with 16 points total. Really well done to them overall. I think playing Edge was very nice. They got a really good scouting position with Potato Hill, moved down from there. They played the Edge quite nicely. I think for Bigatron Red Aliens, if you swap the 2 positions for Valdez and Bigatron, we might have seen something very different there, purely because they had very similar play styles. Just Bigatron, they kind of eked out at the end with the circle coming down towards the south, whereas Valdez, they just had to travel a little bit too far, as you can see from the healing.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of interesting for me is that, like, this is just, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I feel like this is just another match for Bigatron. Like, this is not crazy numbers. This is not subpar numbers for them. This is just kind of the standard. It feels like it's become for BTR.
Yeah, it does, right? And I feel like that is what works for them. Like, even though Blaine had mentioned earlier, like how it's been kind of a up and down year for them so far, they really haven't had to change much. But if you still keep getting results like this, these consistent results, which at the end of the day is going to give you that big win, that big W, the first position. Do you really need to mix things up? Do you really need to adapt a lot and be unpredictable for teams where, you know, you are considered the favorites, right? So I can kind of see why they would just continue what they're doing. But hey, maybe if things get a little too hot and heated, maybe if things get a little rough, maybe they just might switch things up on the fly in the middle of the event as well. You never know with these guys.
Well, Blake, I remember at the start of today, you did mention a certain player on Valdez's team that you wanted to keep an eye on over the course of today. And he already came out the gate swinging, came out in flying colors with the first match. We're going to take a closer look at Martin one more time for Valdez and just kind of see his stats in the form of a radar and see how he's comparing against the other players, because it definitely seems like we already have a standout within this team.
Yeah, so this guy currently is at max for both kills as well as knockouts. I believe the max damage there would go over towards Tyra on Blacklist International. But you've got to consider this, Jason. This guy's put out 761 damage, and you guys went out around about 19 minutes. Blacklist had a total of about 6 minutes total additional survival time. So this guy has pumped out a lot in a very short amount of time as well. Martin has been nipping at the heels at some of the big teams for the longest time on Valdez the Esports. Sometimes it was back on when they were Valdez the Murder or Illuminate the Murder. He's really just pushed through on this team, and it's beautiful to see that he's still around and he's still kicking. So if you guys want to watch out for one player, definitely watch out for Martin.
Yeah, I actually wanted to see even Gui on the team. I mean, we obviously have Thailand being represented in the form of Valdez, and we got to see Power 888 KPS when it came to PMGC. I think Corpai ended up retiring for a bit, if I'm not mistaken, on the roster. But they have some phenomenal players across the entirety of Thailand, and I feel like maybe they have a real chance here with the roster they're currently sporting to easily take this whole tournament and again get a lump sum amount for a charity of their choice, which is what this whole event's about, Blah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about a lot of these other teams where you have Zeus, you have Bigatron, you have Navi, big names, but like some of these teams we are getting to see over here, which a lot of the viewers might not be very well aware of them. Like I said, it is a very competitive scene, especially Southeast Asian out there, and we see certain teams playing here who, you look at the other teams they have in the countries and like, wait, why did these teams qualify? Well, they didn't qualify because they got beaten, right? So you really cannot count these guys out. And for me personally, the fact that Valdez is able to perform quite well in this particular event, and we've had some pretty unexpected results coming in with Blacklist winning it, I feel is going to be a good sign for all things to come for the duration of the tournament.
Yeah, I actually, thinking about that, I wanted to look at one more team if we had a second, was Reject, actually, because again, we talked about Blue Bees, we talked about like Divine on the roster back at PMGC. They came out with 11 points in total. They only got 1 kill though, which seems very Blue Bee-esque, if I'm not mistaken, Blake, where they just kind of play for placements and they can't play for both at the same time.
Yeah, these guys are the wide swingers, 100%. They will swing those hips out to the side of the map as much as they like because they're very good when it comes to rotations. I think Japan's always been a very smart region overall, and getting those 10 points in terms of placement points online is just brilliant for yourself. I think they got really unlucky specifically because Zeus is just such a nutty team overall. I think they took down I think it was 2 players from about 300-meter distance whilst they were crossing a hillside, which feels bad, and if you're a Reject, you're like, how has this happened? This is unacceptable, but you still get those 10 points, which is fine. I think Reject just need to take that, call it a win, and then just carry on.
I mean, sometimes you're just not afforded the positions to play for kills, right? Sometimes you just have to play for placements. We saw that happen in PMPL Western Europe quite a few times out of teams. But I kind of want to leave it open to you two, like, which team stood out, which team maybe underperformed. Again, like, I know maybe we're being a little bit too harsh. It is just one match. It's the first of the day. Some teams did get that time, that experience to get used to each other. I was kind of happy again with Zeus to see some consistency. A1, I was kind of hoping to see them gun for BTR like we saw happen at PMG. It was so close. It just didn't happen, unfortunately, I think. So a little sad, but you know what? The meme can come back alive later on.
Yeah, for sure. But also, like, speaking of teams who did kind of underperform, and I guess it's the way they got eliminated for me personally, right? You look at a team like DRS, they're a team who likes dropping towards Yasnayo, and they go in for the super late rotations. They're willing to just brave the blue for as long as it takes, come in at the very end and just pick off the remaining members of whoever's alive. So they rely primarily on the placement points. And for the side of I8, they like dropping towards military base, and for them it's about getting as many kills as possible. And because they drop towards a military island, they don't really face off against any opposition early on. And the fact that these two teams got knocked out very early is a little surprising for me personally. So, maybe things will hopefully kind of turn around for these South Asian teams.
Yeah, maybe things will heat up as the humidity is going to rise. We're about to head into our second match of the day. It's going to be over on Sandhawk. We got to bring our commentators back in. So Blake and Blair, we'll check with you guys once the match does finish. But we have to bring in 2 just as handsome gentlemen who are ready to go to cover all the action today. It is going to be Max Man and Imperium Man.
It's two, that's a lot of mans over here on the desk. But yeah, thank you very much, Jason, as always. Ready for our second game Imperium this time around. And we're going to be heading over for our very first Sanhok games. So Sanhok is the map that's maybe a little bit harder to be consistent on. And there are some teams that are actually really strong on this one. We talked about BTR and that they can do really well on this map. But are there other ones that come to your mind, like Sanhok? They could be a big surprise coming on the jungle map.
Cliche, but Zeus, right?
Yeah.
They're so aggressive.
I was expecting it.
Gotta put them out there, but I'm also very excited. And it's not it's genuinely not only because they had a good game in game one, but Valdez. I don't know why, but I'm expecting them to do well. But also Navi, right? Team that had such a poor start to the tournament in game one. They do land around Hating. As far as I know, they should be dropping around Hating. I think it'll be really good for them. Actually, no, not Hating. It'll be more towards Camp Alpha. They'll probably be able to then really kind of settle themselves in, depending on this circle shift sweeping in through the trifecta region and pick off a couple of players, you know, getting in towards the end of phase one. So Navi is a team that I'm looking out for to have a very good game.
We're going to be kept around the riverside if they're trying to escape from the northwestern island. It's actually interesting because you mentioned a few of the teams there. The one I wanted to talk about was going to be Blacklist International, and I had that prepared before the show even started, and I did not expect them to start off with a win. So I'm like, people are going to say, Max, man, talking a lot about Blacklist International. Well, this was not prepared in the first place, but they are a team that understand the value of position on this map, and especially they put big emphasis around scouting, which I tend to see some teams not do that often. It is something on Sanhok that makes a really big difference. So hopefully they can try and do something rather similar than what we've seen in scrims and recent tournaments also. Though said Navi, they typically drop Camp Alpha. They're relatively close. I believe that's Geek Fam underneath them. Oh yeah, okay, that's gonna get dirty over there.
Yeah, but have you noticed A1 and Valdez? Both teams are dropping in Paradise Resort. We're gonna have a Paradise battle, baby. Let's go. It's gonna be very exciting, very tricky to fight around Paradise, because the corners are hard covers and you really have to commit if you're going to peek around a corner, and you're much better off sweeping through the smaller buildings of Paradise Resort as a 2, as a 3-man team. Going in solo is incredibly risky. We've yet to see anything kick off in terms of knocks or kills before we get into phase 1, but interested to see how the Paradise Resort fight is going to go down.
The cool thing though was A1 and Valdez is that you got A1 that's on the west, Valdez is on the east. If they know as a fact that there's another team, which typically, like, they should, right? They hear the footsteps, they saw them drop over the parachute. If I were them, maybe even Valdez, I would just go to one of the compounds over to the east after getting some very small amount of loot my way. That would be my play, at least I would go for, and especially it is in circles, so it's relatively strong. Though Camp Alpha, I said, I thought there was a few players, I didn't think the entire squad of Geek Fam were actually going to be taking out 5 versus Na'Vi, so they're going to be pushing their way forward. A lot of footsteps going to be made currently, so Na'Vi are definitely going to be alert as to where Geek Fam currently stand, while QB is going to be very wide out over to the west, and that could be the sneaky off angle that creates a sneaky opportunity for the rest of Geek Fam onto Na'Vi.
Now, Kitsune was given information on footsteps, and I think Navi recognized that the western side of the camp was quite easily exposed for Geek Fam to sweep around, so Matic and Meku both instantly headed in that direction. So great awareness from Navi to stop any kind of reposition or backstabbing coming through for Navi. It also opens the door now for Kitsune to do a little bit of looting, and for him to join up with the rest of the team. But even look at this for Matic, right? Going on the outskirts. Thing is, do they know that QB is even further out, ready to take down Matic?
That's why I said that's going to be the sneaky off angle, and now they lose the information game that Matic was trying to set up for Na'Vi. But don't know what it is with Na'Vi today, but the 2 first games, they are already suffering big casualties. Meku going to be trying to take that fight with the QBZ. Unfortunately, not able to get any significant damage to find a knock. One player of Geek Fam going to be put extremely low, but will be able to go for the first aid in time. So Damarud should be good to go. And now Na'Vi slowly but surely going to get surrounded, and I would say now might be the prime time to have QB actually join you to create an advantage. You still get information, but really here you want to take that 4v3. You want to create an even better advantage onto Na'Vi.
Couldn't have said that better myself, Max. Definitely rocket down the hill and look to really put the pressure on the CIS team representing Russia in this PMWI. They're now on the outskirts. They do have the kind of dip of it's going to get a return knock.
Very hard to play from this spot with a third-person perspective. Geek Fam know exactly where Na'Vi could be, but it's also sent for the other side. And actually, that's going to be Tixi confirming that kill onto Sanes.
Wow.
That's going to be Dunzo. He's going to try and close things off, as Na'Vi actually creating a great position for themselves out of nothing. Snipes is going to be confirmed with UMP in the hands of Tixi. That's going to be said and done. Geek Fam now down to 2 players, and they're trying to move away. They instantly regret this one. A little bit too spread, and unfortunately trying to find opportunities. Na'Vi struck at the prime opportunity, and now Geek Fam are completely overwhelmed. As a 2v3, they need to move away.
as much as that was fantastic baiting coming out from Navi, it was really good baiting, and they used that low ground dip to their advantage, right? As I mentioned. But that was incredibly poor teamwork from Geek Fam, right? You gotta respect your opponents in that situation. You've only taken down one. Unless you've got two, you don't send two players forward. Free opportunities to get back into the fight, and now Navi are going to disengage, knowing that they've only lost one player, but they've got 2 kills. That's a net positive in my eyes. Is there a chance that they can still get backstab running up the mountain? Yeah, of course, but that's a risk they're willing to take. They don't have guns, so they will go a little bit faster across the way, and you can see that Tixie is at least trying to get a bit of information.
You do see it as a net positive, but one thing that I think is very important to mention for Na'Vi is they're going to have to cross over that river. So having now a 3-man instead of a 4-man, if you are getting gate kept, that's going to be a lot, and I mean a lot harder for them to execute. So just something to keep in the back of our minds. Though, one thing that I love, and I mentioned it, right, when you talked about the fight of potentially happening between Na'Vi and Valdez in Paradise Resort, and I said, because they're so far away from each other inside that compound, or Valdez or A1 could leave, and it seemed like A1 were the one to leave first, and it's not a game of chicken and they were scared first. It's a smart play. You do not want to take early fights on Sanhok. They avoided it, and now they're in a relatively good spot that's in the circle. So I love that. I think that's great respect going the way of A1.
Definitely. Massive respect, and the majority of the early game has been on that Navi and Geek fight, so let's take a bit of a step back and have a look where other teams are. DRS have the eastern side just above Camp Bravo all to themselves. Mung Nai is open. DS Gaming dropped in Count Tabok region. They're on the northern side of the map, looking quite healthy in terms of position. Zeus once again in the center, but they have a bit of a 2-1-1 split just down south of Paradise Resort. It's a great spot to be, but I also worry that there's going to be a lot of teams around them based on this phase 1, and they might get clustered up and really picked off one by one, depending on how responsive they are to any kind of shots heading in their direction. BTR dropped in Pinat. That's all good in the hood. They dropped out of there. They moved forward and they're on towards the outside of boot camp area. So far, so good, Max.
So far, so good indeed. But to touch on what you said about the position of Zeus, just like last game, they zone teams away, and that's great. And I think especially they know that they can go for widespread, because this is a location in which, when you are playing Southern Paradise Resort, it's not great terrain to play from. And because of that, a lot of teams try to avoid it. So if you want to try and go for a little bit of a wider spread while remaining undetected, that would be a position I would go for. Just hide in open sight, and you know that teams do not drop there, you do your research, then you should be completely fine. And I think that is some good potential research being made by Zeus. But as you said, the circle is centering up on their position. We'll see where phase 2 goes. If it does go their way, they need to try and be able to fight accordingly and reposition, that's for sure. Talking about repositioning, BTR are doing something very similar, where they're going to try and push their way towards reject. They are completely unaware of BTR currently pushing in their overall vicinity.
You highlighted Blacklist at the start of the game and how good they are rotating towards these circles. I'm a little bit worried that you've caster cursed them, or Maxman cursed them, should I say.
It's got my name now on it.
This game too. But so far they have a fantastic position on boot camp. It overlooks boot camp hill, should I say. It overlooks boot camp. It gives information towards their BTR. Now, one thing that might worry me about them is that even though they did get a good 9 kills in the last game, maybe not being aggressive early in the game might come to bite them in the butt because of how Sanhok works. But I'm excited to see how Blacklist play this game coming into game 2, game 3 as I8 rocking it. Not so much together as Crypto is a little bit more forward on his own, but he has to wait, because without the information and without the support of his team, they could once again get picked off one by one in this game 2.
I love that Abeli being spread away from the rest of his team currently, is waiting with a Thompson, 50 bullets, kind of the best clutch weapon to have if they are relatively low HP, because the damage per bullet ratio is not strong as, for example, an M4 and AKM, so it will make it a little bit harder. But yeah, it's all the M2. So it is a weapon is good if you want to try and keep teams away and just get some suppressing fire, but you've got to be cautious that they don't actually close the gap and go for the full-on engage. Then the weapon tends to be a little bit harder to play around in those clutch situations. Though Reject also going a little bit wider, looking for more information. Not gonna lie, for a Sanhok game, this is very slow. You could already expect a team or two to be out by now, but that goes to show Imperium how much research has been done. There's no team stepping on each other's toes and just showing a lot of respect to each other, which we love to see, but the more teams survive now, the more hectic it's gonna get later on.
It's going to build up. That traffic is going to build up, right? And it's going to get to the point where something's just going to
roller coaster,
and that dam is going to be broken. Yeah, the roller coaster play where we're getting up the top, looking down at the bottom. It's like, oh, here we go. Well, phase 2 is about to pop up, and what direction is this roller coaster of a game going to go? It's going to go to the west, which is low-key helpful for Geek Fam, but I would actually argue not helpful, because now other teams are going to be looking in their direction on the Northwest Island, right? They might not be on the Northwest Island, but they're going to be looking in their direction. Will any team commit going over there from the mainland, or will it just create more of a claustrophobic position for multiple teams, as Crypto found Ably prone down and does pick up the first kill for I8 in this PMWI.
And that's what we said, right? The Thompson in a proper 1v1 versus an AKM. The AKM's going to win most of the time, and that's exactly what happened for them. So Abely's going to be gone, losing a little bit more information for them. But talking back on that circle on phase 2, what we saw when it popped, this is actually a very hard shift, not in terms of how the teams are positioned, because a lot of them are currently in there, except for the likes of maybe DRS and even NASA Esports and even Myth that are really delaying their rotation, currently playing in the blue. But there's a world now where we could have a Northwestern Island finish. Of course, the odds of that happening are extremely slim, but if it does happen, we're going to see one of the most hectic games on Sanhok, I think myself and maybe yourself too, have ever witnessed. So I'm hoping that we get crossing over. And now they're fully committing back to the Northwestern Island. They're like, you know what? There's a chance. We're going to stick there as long as we possibly can to just remain alive for the longest period of time.
And it's also the kind of circle where you can't really commit to the coastal line of the mainland, right? Because there's just as easy of a chance that you could get absolutely violated by Navi on the Northwest Island. So there's really not that much to play around for these teams inside this phase 2, at least until 1 or 2 squads are wiped out. A bit of return fire by Zeus onto I8 as one player is knocked down. Bosom. Godless is low on health. Icy's doing a wonderful job with that UMP, but he's getting double teamed.
And which one's going to win, IMP or 2 players of I8? Seem like the 2 players of I8 are going to be able to dominate more and more. Crypto onto the front lane with Blade. Trying to
push it,
even more of a toll, but yeah, you get so much damage onto Zol and also 2 knocks. You want to try and wrap this one up. They're hearing shots from a distance. They're scared of potentially getting third party, so they don't want to be overzealous. They don't want to overstep their welcome. They find the shot. Revers gets it done, and Nazu's out of the lobby in 16th place. Now 15 teams yet remain, but Valdez in the distance could try and capitalize on that chance, so I8's got to be very careful of what their next move is going to be.
That's why I was kind of saying push it, because you've made noise. Much higher chance that there's going to be a third party, and it's come from Reject. I don't know if it's close enough that they can really capitalize in terms of getting a squad role, but maybe picking up a kill from Reject's position is quite viable. The spread they have is gigantic. Blade's going to dip down, crawl away, and he should be able to get revived. But I gotta say, very impressed with I8 in that fight, right? They responded quickly off the back of it not coming through, and they're back to their kind of ways in which they're expected to play, which is aggressive, forward-thinking, and no fear, just fight.
It's kind of mentality we're hoping to see coming out from I8, and hopefully this is not the only time we'll see that kind of mentality come on through.
They can shift through on that southeastern side of the circle, which is less likely to be contested because of that phase 2 shift. So you got to recognize the availability of an open position coming into the edge of the circle. A1 are creeping forward. They're fighting up against DS right here, right now.
Happy to see the Cybertruck getting played, actually. Got to be careful, though. The windows from what I've seen by Elon Musk are not all that powerful, okay? They do break pretty easily, so you've got to be careful. They will not withstand bullets. Though A1 now going to go for the engage, already 2 players down as they try to get closer to the compound held down by the South Korean team of DS Gaming. Sinister trying his best to build a lot of breathing space for his troop players. One gets actually taken down and breathes to his death, and the nade actually nates Dante. Okay, man, he's gonna come for revenge next game. Sinister, that was not very cash money of you.
I'm trying to think of a Star Wars pun with that, but I've never watched a Star Wars film, so I can't make a pun. But that unfortunately leaves A1 down to 2 players. And look, it's low-key A1 doing A1 things, right? They're a team that like to be aggressive, that like to fight, that are very kill-heavy. They don't really tend to survive into the top 3. Top 4, as Blacklist International, the winners of the last game, are getting a good few shots onto Myth, who are now down to 2.
That's what we say about this team. They're so controlling when they have a strong position and you know that there's going to be a team coming their way. They will push out. They will be hyper aggressive to make sure you cannot pose any threat to their spot, and that they're going to keep complete ownership of that compound. Lur's already on an off angle. Alas also, they got such a wide spread. There's literally no escape for Myth. They delayed this rotation so much, and now it's so hard for them to play around. Hosem and also Rio still going to be up and ready to go. But really, is there anywhere else to go? If you want to try and wrap around, this is phase 3, about to go into phase 4 blue zone. The tick damage is ranking up pretty heavily.
It is.
And because they've been in the blue zone for the longest time, do they have enough meds to survive a phase 4, a phase 5 blue zone? Yeah, okay, he's got 35 bandages. Maybe. Maybe.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing for Blacklist. I think it was right that they gate kept Myth, because I think they're at the point in the game, and I know it's only phase 3, but you're at the point in the game where if you're so far away from the circle, or if you know there's a lot of traffic in front of you, you're actually better off gatekeeping and kind of going for kills rather than some kind of position in a circle. I don't know if it's gonna work out for Blacklist, but I get the idea behind it.
Are they actually able to push it over? We said them being down to a 3-man team could make this a lot hard, and it seems like they are indeed struggling versus Dig Xavier. They're just holding on the angle so far around what you call the black hole of Sanhok Imperium, and they got some good little oversights, especially with where Frankie currently is. I would even say it's a super position. All you One Piece fans out there, hope you got that one. Now moving forward, this is a circle that's great for A1. Really happy, Chappy, that about the fact that they did move away from Paradise, but now there's a lot of attention coming their way. Can A1 actually defend their spot now in the future? That's what we're hoping to see soon.
Well, I have a feeling that we're going to lose 3 or 4 teams, even
for sure.
the time
Even more.
even by the time anybody actually pushes in onto A1's compound. We have 40 teams, 48 players. BTR looking at rejects. Luxy, he gets the first knock onto Lapis. Good start for BTR.
Sluxy. It's like the mix. Zuxy and Luxy in one is the duo. That's the name. That's what we're going to go for. It's like when you shit people, you mix the name. That's going to be the same for Zuxy and Luxy. Zluxy. We go. It's meta now. Anyways, pushing on forward, you're also going to have Blacklist International. They're aware, they hear the gunshots, they're like, we don't want to get involved with this whatsoever. We're going to wrap around over to the eastern edge and maybe be the next team to gatekeep BTR or reject whatever team actually come out on top of this fight. Lap is going to be taken down, sees the smoke, and actually able to follow that spray. So well done, but at the end he does get retaliated upon by Duello. Now they're going to go for the engage. Sarah going to be the one on the forefront for reject, but BTR still got 3 players currently alive, but 2 players are extremely far behind. BTR are not in a position to really defend themselves versus that push of reject.
Yeah, I get Ryzen staying in that compound, a little bit of an anchor point on the edge of the circle, but why was Liquid so slow to join up as Sarah gets knocked? Great pick for Reject, they're turning it around. Duello, Divine looking to be joining up as well. Liquid is backing out of there, and again, the late decision making of Liquid to join up has put BTR in a position where they are down to 2 players. Yes, they have the edge of the circle, but just slightly poor timing.
Yeah, very unfortunate run of event for them. They just gave themselves up 1 by 1, and now the high ground is going back in favor of Reject, so BTR is going to be careful how they play that one, but at least they are having the fight come their way, so they're somewhat dictating the pacing of this fight. As Liquid, from the shack, goes for the spray. It's really hard to move away from, and the blue team about to engulf them. He actually gets the knockdown onto Sarah. Beautiful. They're going for the Duello shot too. That would be a double. That would be huge if they can actually connect it. And now he's into the blue zone. Did he get the heal in time? I think he will be fine. But yeah, Reject got completely overwhelmed by both Ryzen and Liquid. And now the nades will be coming on through to try and close the gap even further. Divine will be pushing inside. Extremely low HP. 1 bullet and you're donezo, mate. And he's going to be in the exact same building as Ryzen, as he's got the heal. He's up to 75% health, but Divine has yet to go for his own personal heal.
Really great turnaround from BTR, but Reject maybe shouldn't have lost a player in that situation.
Okay.
This is I8, unfortunately they are going to go down at the hands of Yala, and a little bit of Valdez coming through as well. 12 teams left as the next circle does shift up on towards the northeast. The circles in the last game were very good, but in this game they have not been kind to these teams at all, Max.
I mean, DS Gaming from South Korea, they are looking absolutely golden on this game. Let's see if they can try and defend their compound. There is going to be DRS from the PAL trying to push up north, so we'll see how that fight goes on later on down the line. Though Divine still looking for the information, maybe trying to get a little bit more intel below this building. But Liquid, he's down below. I see him right there with the M249. and that's an easy weapon for a 1v2. That should be a really easy one, especially when they are so low HP. Just 1 or 2 shots and you are done. He's able to get it underneath the building. Liquid, opportunistic as hell, and he goes for the double with the M249, and he starts moving right into the game. Eyes on the prize, and Liquid clears out Reject and stays alive for the team.
Oh my god, that was beautiful from Liquid. So good. The eyes on the prize indeed, but can he deal with the blue zone? As Myth, Navi, lots of time in front of them, as Kitsune is going to help get that one on board. 3 kills for Navi, as Kitsune is the last player standing, but he goes down at the hands of Legend.
Yeah, Liquid got picked up by the blue zone, and that's going to be Yala. Man, so opportunistic actually on the southern side. They were clearing so many teams. They got rid of IA, and now that all the teams basically took care of each other on the west and also on the south, Yala just like, well, guess we're the kings of the hill now. Now we're taking the control. Now we're moving our way forward, and the only team that's really a threat to their position, I would say, would be A1 that are the closest, but Yala's going to be careful. There's a few dips, ups and downs, and A1 currently have a little bit of a high ground position, but Sinister cannot even make the most out of that high ground. He gets instantly put down on his knees. Jack's trying his best to extract himself potentially of that fight, but there's no way. IEDA is going to go far and wide to overcome that hurdle of A1 Esports, and I think that we might just be looking at the undoing of the Bangladesh team of A1 Esports, as Jax is just trying to hold on strong as much as possible, but this is a hard escape for them.
Don't go for the revive. You haven't got the time. 13 seconds left on the clock. As Loca's going to get knocked down. The second they made noise towards A1, they alerted the attention of both DS and Valdez, the murder, as they have controlled that eastern side like it is their own child outside of Paradise Resort. Really good. Yaller on 8 kills. Valdez are on 4.
DRS very lucky. The fact that the circle is still on their side of the road, they can delay their rotation as much as possible and leave DS Gaming do a lot of the heavy lifting. They're going to clear as many teams as possible or they will go down. And this is DRS somewhat confirming bare minimum a 3rd position purely by remaining on the northern side of the circle. That's all you have to do. Top 3 minimum, just stay there. Though A1 currently still trying their best to survive it. That's going to be 1 player confirmed. And
unfortunately, Gooey left on his own. The former Power AAA player found his feet inside Valdez. Let's see if he can work wonders with DRS. They could be distracting DS Gaming at the right time, which could allow Gooey to slip in on the underside, but with no cover, he is going to be open season for the pickings.
Hunting season right now, we're hunting down players of DRS. Saden trying to close that gap. I feel that Ninja being knocked down actually makes it a little bit easier for the other team to go for the push, but he's spotted away. AJ gets the knock. Saden's going to be out of this game almost instantaneously, as ZZP still up and ready to go, but he has to push over. And this circle literally ends right on top of the road, but there's a little bit more free real estate Imperium in favor of DRS, and Nima currently has that tree in his favor. Oh my god! Back and forth. Is it going to be connecting? The nade is so close, but it's going to be exploding a little bit further away. Sports is looking safe. But this is an insane 1v1 finish, as the Molly was right behind him, and Nima is still able to hold on strong. Sporter should go far and wide in that 1v1 situation. We've got to go for the spray with the UMP. Sporter should not be allowed to win this game. Nemo, you have to go for the spray right here, right now. 1 more bullet is all you need, and he gets it done, Imperium, as we do have our very first Nepali winner chicken dinner going over to none other than DRS Gaming.
That man, Nepal OP, DRS OP, that was beautiful, and I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to survive going down the hill from the north, but the fact that Valdez did go for that 1-1 split, I think was a big reason why they end up winning it, because it took away an angle of third partying from that side, and that only that allowed them to focus on DS. And I appreciate and respect how kind of aggressive DS were on that push away from the compound, because they knew they had to be, but then it was left in that 1v1, and despite having the rock as cover, Nima really kind of pushed him so heavily with the nade and then forced him to make a move, which allowed Nima to control the end.
It was almost a clutch molly coming out from the other side, actually. There was a molly that was literally right behind Nima. You could barely see it. There was a few little flames that I could see at the bottom of my screen. That molly would have been thrown just a little bit shorter on the throw, and that was DRS's game going out of their hands instantly. They would have been second, and that would have been going the other way. Yeah. Lucky enough, though, Nima, as you said, able to push out the opponent there with his nade and actually able to push him out the rock, and then just made it very easy. I'm surprised he took so long, actually. to go for the spray, but the more you delay it, the easier it's going to be to connect that shot, and you're given less response time, and it worked out great. So yeah, DRS, there we go. We were hoping to see an Apali win eventually today, and game 2 is the one where they do put the money in the bank.
Yeah, money in the bank indeed. Such a good way for them to start day 1, at least with a chicken dinner off the back of what was a poor team fight in the first game of the day. Navi impressed me with, at least in terms of how they turned that fight around. I8 also having a bit of a better, more aggressive game, but because of the circle shifts, and it's not often I say that the circle shifts were, you know, a kind of an F for a few of these teams, but those circle shifts in Sanhok were incredibly tricky and allowed for that kind of claustrophobic play to come through towards the end where teams got caught out.
That was a cursive F, you know, just a very good looking one because it was very hard to deal with. Then we had the great clutch play from Liquid on the M249 and able to clear out the rest of Reject. The South was very hard to play with, and because of that, Yala would want to capitalize the most out of that kind of situation and get himself in a strong spot, but unfortunately for them, there was going to be DS Gaming playing in such a strong spot. And you know, we're talking so much about DRS, but DS Gaming, sure, there were not too many teams trying to contest that position, but the moment Yala Esport were trying to threaten their spot, they went guns blazing, or should I say even nades blazing, as they completely took control of that spot and then won it. And then they do get himself a second spot with Sporter trying to go for the push last second, and Nima actually able to get it. But it was close. We did see Nima's health bar go down quite a fair bit, so never know, in another world, in another dimension, that could have been a win going the way of DS Gaming.
Yeah, for sure, DS Gaming had a fantastic game and they deserved a strong result they got, but Valdez, before we go into a break, 2 games, 2 strong results. This team is looking consistent.
Looking really strong. We'll see if they can try and keep up on that one, but we're going to be heading on over back to the desk after this break to try and break down our second game here over on Sanhok.
When the world has safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines, how can we make sure they reach the people that need them most? Today, there are many vaccines in development. Most will fail. For those that could succeed, governments are under pressure to secure supplies for their populations. If governments compete for vaccines, most countries could miss out. This is not only bad for countries that cannot secure their own supplies, it's bad for us all, as no one is safe until everyone is safe.
Anywhere near the extent we're at now, Alicia and her team were working tremendously hard to address perceived future drug shortages.
The idea with the ICU kit at the beginning was trying to think of a way that we could help these patients that are critical in ICU settings. In this case, it was kind of the next layer of protection for this response. In the kit, we have a few different types of medications, antibiotics for secondary bacterial infections, as well as blood pressure support, so vasopressors. Things like albuterol inhalers, we were learning, were highly requested in hospitals. Medications that are used for intubation and sedation that help with that process. Each one of these kits is designed to have about 100 courses of antibiotics and supportive medications. The first 2 are headed up to Northern California in the Bay Area, which is especially hard hit, and the next 11 are going to hospitals across New Jersey, and we'll have about 80 of them going to New York City. In the end, we're just feeling really fortunate that we're able to support our partners with these medications that they need so desperately.
the wisdom, the expertise that I think this team has demonstrated in being able to help us as a community partner, but also hospitals and healthcare systems around the country struggle with drug shortages, which are now a reality, I think just speaks volumes to the impact DR has.
We've got the OnePlus 9 Pro, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Oh my gosh, this is out of this world. It's incredibly responsive. Oh my god, this phone feels incredible. Look how buttery smooth that is. This Hyper Touch is just insane. Oh, you gotta see it to believe it. It's got 65 watts of charging power.
The 9 series is next level for your mobile gaming experience.
The best phone for mobile gaming? Well, it's pretty simple. It's right here.
There's a fire in my heart, yeah, it burns for the game we play. Now I rise and take my turn to be born again for this day. I know they're waiting for me now to win it all. I hear my name cried in the crowd. They call, fighting through all of the pain. I'll never fall, risking everything I have to stand up tall. Now my flames burn bright and my head's held high. Oh, can't knock me down. No, my fears are buried down tonight, and I dry my eyes 'cause I'm a fighter. There is only one way I can survive. Fighting through all of the pain, the best will rise. Now my flames burn bright and my head's held high. Oh, can't knock me down. No, my fears are buried down tonight, and I dry my eyes 'cause I'm a fighter. Won't ever back down 'cause I'm breathing fire. Oh, yeah, I'm breathing fire. Oh, now I'm breathing fire.
Apa sih? Tunggu dulu jalan lagi. Apa ये?
PubG Mobile World Invitationals, powered by Gamers Without Borders and brought to you by OnePlus, the official smartphone provider, Nemo TV, the official streaming platform, and STC, the official playout sponsor. And that means, as you hear my voice again, the second match is done, and we are going to start to break things down with myself, Jason Kaplan, Blank, and Bleh to talk everything that has happened in this last game, and what a game it has been as well. DRS Gaming, Nepal coming out on top in their first match overall in this event. Great to see them come out with flying colors here, Blank.
100% DRS played that really nicely. I think once you have that north side of the road as well, you can start to play it out much easier. But on top